My name is Clara. I'm 29. I'm an architect. And I guess I'm finally turning on this camera because I have to get this out. I have to tell this story. I've been carrying it around for years, and it's heavy. You know that feeling? It's not just a bad memory, it's like a physical weight in my chest, a rock in my stomach. And I feel like if I can just say it, all of it, from the absolute beginning to the very, very end, maybe I can finally put it down. Maybe I can just leave it here with you and walk away from it. The title of this video, I know, it's intense. My best friend stole my boyfriend. I sent her to jail without touching her. It sounds like the plot of a terrible Netflix movie, right? Something totally made up. Something you'd read about on a Reddit thread and think, yeah, right, that didn't happen. But it did. It's my life. It's the last 3 years of my life. And that part, the without touching her part, that's everything. That's the part that I cling to when I can't sleep. It was clean, precise. There were no messy fingerprints. My revenge was architectural. It was built, not thrown. I think the reason I'm doing this now is, well, I got a notification a few weeks ago. An article popped up on my phone. Just a small local news blurb about her upcoming parole hearing. And seeing her name in print after all this time, it brought it all flooding back. And I realized she's gonna get out soon, and she's gonna have a story. She always has a story. And I just thought, if I can tell the whole truth of it on my own terms before she has a chance to twist it into something else, then maybe I can finally be free of it. So, if you've ever been betrayed, I mean, really, truly, stabbed in the soul, betrayed by someone you thought was your person, you'll get this. You'll understand the particular kind of crazy it makes you feel. And if you haven't, I'm honestly so happy for you. Genuinely. But maybe just listen, because this is a cautionary tale about how the people you love the most, they're the only ones who know all your secret, load-bearing walls. And they're the only ones who know exactly where to place the dynamite. Okay, to get why it ended the way it did, you have to understand how it all started. You have to understand what she took from me. It was never just a boyfriend. God, if it was just a boyfriend, I would have cried for a month, eaten my body weight in cookie dough, dyed my hair, and moved on. We've all been there. No, this was so much bigger. They took my whole world. They took my past. They took 12 years of my memories, and they poisoned them. Now, when I look back, I can't tell what was real and what was part of the long con. Her name is Jenna, and for 12 years, she was my other half. It's not an exaggeration. We met in our first year of university in a giant, cavernous lecture hall for a class called Introduction to Structural Engineering. It was as boring as it sounds. I was this painfully shy, awkward kid. I was an only child, raised by 2 very quiet, very introverted parents. I was good at being alone. I was comfortable with books and drawings and silence. I was not good with people. Being thrown into this sea of hundreds of strangers felt like a punishment. I would sit in the back corner, hood up, trying to be invisible. And on the second day of class, this girl, she just sits down next to me. Bright pink hair, like shocking pink, a little silver nose ring, and a laugh that wasn't just loud, it like bounced off the walls. She radiated a kind of energy I had only ever seen in movies. I was immediately intimidated, and she leans over to me in the middle of the professor droning on about tensile strength and whispers, I am 1 lecture away from a full-blown existential crisis. Tacos after this? We can pretend we learned something. I was so shocked that someone that cool was talking to me that I think I just sort of nodded dumbly.
And after class, we went to this little dive bar and we talked for 3 hours. She made me laugh so hard, I think I snorted, which was my worst nightmare. But she just laughed even harder. That was it. From that day on, it was Clara and Jenna, Jenna and Clara. We were a unit. She pulled me out of my shell. She taught me how to order a drink at a crowded bar, how to make small talk, how to wear something other than black and gray. And me, I think I was her anchor. She was this beautiful, bright, chaotic storm of a person, and I was the one who remembered our rent was due. I was the one who made her tea and put a blanket on her when she was freaking out about an exam. I was the one who would listen for hours and hours when she was feeling insecure, which was a lot more often than anyone ever knew. We got our first terrible apartment together after our second year. It had questionable plumbing and a weird smell we could never identify. I have this crystal clear memory of us trying to assemble an IKEA bookshelf. The instructions were garbage. We were both tired and hangry. She was convinced they'd given us the wrong screws, and I was convinced she'd put the side panels on backwards. She got so frustrated that she threw a handful of screws across the room and dramatically fell on the floor, declaring that we should just burn the whole thing and use a pile of books as a table. And I started laughing so hard I couldn't breathe, and then she started laughing, and we just lay there on the floor for 20 minutes, surrounded by pieces of cheap particle board and Allen keys, laughing until we cried. That was us. Pure, easy us. She knew everything about me. Everything. The silly, secret stuff. The deep, dark stuff. She knew I had a crippling fear of spiders and would come running, even from a different room, with a magazine to be the designated hitman. She knew I secretly blasted 80s power ballads at full volume when I was sad. She knew that my biggest emotional trigger was my dad's quiet disappointment. He's a good man, but he's a man of few words, and his silence can feel like a judgment. She was the only person I ever told that to. And I knew her. I knew that all that confidence was a performance, that underneath it all, she was desperately, deeply insecure. She needed to be the brightest star in every single room. She craved validation like oxygen. I didn't see it as a bad thing back then. I really didn't. I just saw it as her. And I was her number one fan. I was the one telling her she was the brightest star. I genuinely believe she deserved all the attention in the world. We had our whole lives mapped out. You know, the way you do when you're 21, full of cheap wine and optimism. We were going to be maids of honor at each other's weddings. Our future kids were destined to be best friends. We'd buy houses on the same street and be those crazy old ladies who drink wine on the porch together and complain about the neighborhood kids. It wasn't a joke. It was the blueprint. It was the only future I could imagine. And for years, it was all going according to plan. We graduated. I, by some miracle, landed a junior architect position at a fantastic firm. It was my dream job. The hours were insane. The work was meticulous. But I loved it. I loved the order, the logic, the creation. Jenna, with her supernova charisma, got a brilliant job in public relations. She was born for it. She could charm anyone. Life was good. And then I met Liam, and life became what I thought was perfect. I met him at a mutual friend's barbecue. It was just one of those perfect, warm summer nights. And he was like he walked right out of a movie. Tall, insanely charming, a smile that just crinkled around his eyes. He worked in finance, something with investments. Smart, driven, and he had this way of looking at you when you talked. It's like the rest of the world just faded away. He asked me about my work, And he actually listened. He asked follow-up questions. He didn't just nod and wait for his turn to speak. He asked what kind of buildings I wanted to design, what architects inspired me. It felt seen. I was my usual awkward self. I think the first thing I did when he came over to say hi was get startled and drop my plastic cup of soda all over my own feet. Total disaster. I was mortified. My face turned beet red, but he didn't even blink. He just laughed this really kind, warm laugh, grabbed a bunch of napkins, and knelt down to help me clean it up. We started talking, and we didn't stop for 3 hours. I remember practically floating back to my apartment that night. I burst through the door, and Jenna was on the couch, surrounded by popcorn, watching some trashy reality show. I didn't even say hello. I just yelled, "Jenna! Oh my God!" She nearly jumped out of her skin, spilling popcorn everywhere. What? What is it? Did you finally tell your boss that his design ideas are from 1982? And I was just giddy, breathless. No, better. I met someone, like a real grown-up, amazing someone.
I think I really like him. And her face just lit up. She was so genuinely thrilled for me. We were squealing and jumping on the couch like we were 15. The second I told her his name was Liam and he worked in finance, she was on her laptop. Okay, Operation Find Out Everything About Liam is a go, she said, her fingers flying. Social media deep dive. We need to know his history. Does he have a crazy ex? Is he secretly a Nickelback fan? We need to know what we're dealing with. That was us. It was always us. My wins were her wins. Liam and we just clicked. The first date was incredible. The second was even better. Within a month, I was completely gone. He was everything I'd ever thought I wanted. He was so supportive of my career, even when I was at the office until midnight. He'd show up with takeout and just sit quietly, reading while I finished up my drawings. He listened. He remembered the little things I'd say. And of course, the first person who had to meet him, you know who it was, Jenna, the final boss. Her approval meant more to me than my own family's, if I'm being honest. I was so nervous. We all went out to dinner, and it was perfect. Too perfect. They hit it off immediately. Jenna was in her element, telling her funniest stories, and Liam was completely captivated. She had him roaring with laughter. After he dropped us home, she grabbed my shoulders, her eyes wide with excitement. "Clara, do not let this one go. Whatever you do, do not mess this up. He is it. He's the one. I'm officially calling it. He's the one." And hearing her say it, it made it real. I trusted her judgment more than my own. For the next 3 years, we were a little trio. It was Liam and me, and Jenna was our permanent, most loved third wheel. Weekend trips, dinner parties, holidays. It was always the three of us. Liam used to joke that he got 2 for the price of 1, that he was dating both of us. It was a joke. It was funny then. It makes me sick to think about it now. He moved in with me after about a year. It was a huge step for me, letting someone into my quiet, ordered space. But with him, it was easy. He just fit. And Jenna was there for all of it, of course. She came over to help us assemble IKEA furniture. She bossed him around about where to hang pictures. She was part of the fabric of our relationship. And I never really said this out loud to anyone because it makes me sound so paranoid, so stupid. But looking back, there were signs, weren't there? There are always signs. They're like these tiny little cracks in the pavement you don't even notice until the whole damn thing collapses. Tiny things. Like, we hosted a dinner party once. Liam was telling a long, complicated story about some deal at his firm. It was all finance jargon, and I was trying to follow along, but my eyes were glazing over. I just smiled and nodded. But Jenna? She jumped right in. "Oh, so you're saying the leverage on that was basically just a confidence play?" And they launched into this rapid-fire conversation using all this terminology I didn't understand. They were laughing, sparking off each other, and I was just sitting there at the head of my own table, in my own apartment, feeling
like a stranger, feeling stupid. I just thought, wow, she gets him in a way I don't. I didn't think, why am I being excluded in my own home? Another time, we were at a bar with a group of friends. Liam and I were having a small, stupid argument about something. I don't even remember what. It wasn't serious, but I was annoyed. Jenna slid in between us, put an arm around each of us and said, okay, you two, break it up. Clara, he's an idiot, but you love him. Liam, she's always right. Just agree and move on. Everyone laughed. It broke the tension, and it seemed so helpful. But looking back, she wasn't taking my side. She was positioning herself as the mediator, the one who understood us both better than we understood ourselves, the one in control. Or the time we went on that hike, the one where I saw him touch her cheek. I can still see it. I was a bit behind, taking my time on a steep part because I'm not a huge heights fan. When I got to the summit, they were standing there, looking out at the view. They were so close. The wind was blowing her hair around her face, and they were laughing about something, and he reached out so naturally, so thoughtlessly, and wiped a tiny smudge of mud off her cheek with his thumb. It wasn't a friendly pat. It was a caress. It was for less than a second, but it was intimate. I felt this tiny, sharp pinch in my chest, a little alarm bell going off, and then I just squashed it immediately. Clara, stop it. You're being crazy. They're like brother and sister. He loves you. She's your best friend. Stop being so insecure. God, the number of times I called myself crazy, the number of times I gaslit myself on their behalf. The last year, that's when things really started to feel off. Liam was working constantly, chasing a big promotion, he said. He was stressed, distant. The easy comfort we had started to feel strained. He'd come home and we'd just sit in the same room on our separate phones. When I tried to talk to him about it, to ask if he was okay, he'd get defensive. I'm doing this for us, Clara. This is for our future. I'm exhausted. I can't be emotionally on 24/7. And I'd feel so small, so selfish. Here he was, working himself to the bone for our future, and I was complaining that he wasn't paying enough attention to me. So I'd just retreat. At the same time, Jenna was pulling away too. She was always swamped with work or at a networking thing. Our weekly wine nights became, well, they just stopped happening. When I'd call her to complain about how distant Liam was, she was weirdly dismissive. Oh, you know how guys get when they're stressed about work, she'd say, her voice sounding far away. Just give him his space. He'll come around. It was the kind of generic advice a stranger would give, not the, okay, let's strategize, here's a 10-point plan. That was her signature. I felt like I was standing on a frozen lake and the ice was cracking under both of my feet. The two people I leaned on the most were both drifting away, and I was just standing there getting colder and more terrified and telling myself it was all in my head. I even started looking for a therapist for me because I was convinced I was the problem. Liam thought it was a great idea. He said he was proud of me for being so proactive about my mental health. Proud of me. Can you believe that? Okay, the day it all ended, the day my life broke in two, before and after, it was a Tuesday. It was raining, one of those miserable, gray, endless days. Liam was at a big work dinner with clients who had flown in from another country. He'd said that he was going to be really late. Jenna was supposedly visiting her aunt. Her aunt lived a couple of hours away and had apparently had a fall. Jenna said she was going to stay for a night or two to help her out. I remember texting her that morning. Hope your auntie is okay. Send her my love. Miss you. Her reply was just a single, thanks, babe, TTYL. So unlike her. I was at home, trying to work, but I couldn't focus. Around 10 p.m., I just got this feeling, this horrible, sick, twisting knot in my stomach. It wasn't a thought, it was a physical sensation. Something was wrong. I called Liam. Straight to voicemail. I texted him. Hey, hope the dinner is going okay. Thinking of you. Love you. Nothing. A little bubble of panic started to rise in my throat. I waited half an hour. Called again. Voicemail. Okay, now the panic isn't a bubble, it's a flood. The rain, the late hour, my mind immediately went to a car crash. I did the thing, the crazy girlfriend thing, the thing you tell yourself you'll never do. We had that Find My app on our phones, for emergencies, for, hey, I'm stuck in traffic and my phone's about to die, or whatever. It was never meant for this. My thumb hovered over the icon. I felt sick, like I was about to open a door I could never, ever close again. But the not knowing was worse.
My hand was shaking so badly, I could barely unlock my phone. I opened the app. I was praying, literally praying to see his little dot moving on the highway, coming home to me. But it wasn't. His dot, his icon on the map, it was stationary. In a residential part of town, a part of town I knew very, very well. It was Jenna's neighborhood. My first thought, and you can hear how desperate I was no. The GPS is glitching. It has to be. My brain started scrambling, trying to build a plausible explanation. Okay, maybe his car broke down near her apartment and his phone died so he couldn't call me, and he went to her place to wait for a tow truck because he has a spare key and knows she isn't home. It sounds insane now, but at that moment I would have believed anything other than the truth. But then I zoomed in, and the dot wasn't on the street. It wasn't near her building. It was on her building, inside it. And something in me shattered. It was a clean snap. I grabbed my car keys. I didn't even put on a coat. I ran out into the pouring rain in my sweatshirt and leggings. The drive is a complete blank. I have no memory of it. I just remember my knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the squeak, squeak, squeak of the windshield wipers, and the street lights blurring into long streaks of pain. My mind was just replaying a highlight reel of their interactions, but now with a horror movie soundtrack. Every laugh, every inside joke, every shared look was suddenly sinister. I parked across the street from her apartment building, and I just sat there, staring up at her window on the 3rd floor. The lights were on. What was I supposed to do? Go up there, pound on the door, make a scene? What would I even say? So I just sat, and I watched for what felt like a lifetime. Maybe it was an hour. And then the living room light went off. A few minutes passed, and then the bedroom light flickered on. A silhouette moved across the curtain, and then a second silhouette joined it. That's when I knew. It wasn't a one-time thing. It was everything. Every single late night at work, every single I'm swamped with this new client, every weird phone call, every lame excuse. It all locked into place. It wasn't a series of unfortunate events. It was a long, sustained, calculated campaign of deception. And I was the only person who didn't know. I don't know how long I would have stayed there frozen, but my phone buzzed in my lap. A text message. It was from Liam. Hey, so sorry, babe. Phone died. This dinner is dragging on forever. Just leaving now. Be home soon. Love you. I stared at the screen, at the lie. The casual, easy, insulting lie. He was in her bed. He was lying next to my best friend in her bed and typing "love you" to me. And then he was going to drive home and get into our bed. That's what broke the spell. The sadness just evaporated. And what was left was rage. A kind of rage I didn't know I was capable of. It was pure white heat. It burned away every tear. I drove home. I walked into our apartment, our home, and I started to pack. Not my stuff, his. I'm an architect. I'm organized. I'm methodical. And in that moment, my grief-stricken, chaotic brain just switched off and my architect brain took over. I made a system, closet first. All his expensive suits, his gym clothes, his ridiculous collection of sneakers. I didn't fold them. I threw them.
right into a pile in the middle of the living room floor. Next, the bathroom. His toothbrush, his fancy face creams, his cologne that I now realized was probably the smell on her sheets. Pile. His books, his PlayStation, his laptop, everything that was his. I went through our home like a surgeon, methodically excising a tumor. By the time the sun started to come up, there was a mountain of his existence in my living room. I looked at it, and then I went to the kitchen, got the box of heavy-duty garbage bags, and I started bagging it all up. Around 7 a.m., he heard his key in the lock. He walked in, looking a little rumpled, and had the absolute nerve to smile at me. "Morning, babe. Man, what a night." Then his eyes landed on the neat row of black garbage bags by the door. His smile just slid off his face. "Clara, what's all this? You're spring cleaning at 7 a.m.? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I looked at him, and my voice came out so cold and scared, it even scared me. "Your phone didn't die, Liam." He physically recoiled. The blood just drained from his face. What are you talking about?" "The dinner didn't run late," I said, my voice completely flat. "It ended at 9. I talked to Mark." He started to sputter. "I know. Mark must be... We went for drinks after. It was..." I cut him off. "How is Jenna's aunt feeling?" If you could have bottled the look on his face in that moment, pure, distilled panic and guilt. He looked like a fish. His mouth just opened and closed, no sound coming out, because she's supposed to be 2 hours away, I continued, my voice still quiet, but shaking with the effort of keeping it that way. "So I'm just a little confused as to why your car and your phone and you were in her apartment all night long." He just stared. Game over. He knew. And you know what he said? You will not believe this. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't beg. He let out a sigh. A tired, put-upon sigh, as if I was inconveniencing him. And he said, "How long have you known?" How long have I known? The arrogance, the audacity, as if I was the one with the secret. "Get out," I said. "Clara, baby, can we please talk about this?" "There is nothing to talk about. You are a liar. And I couldn't even say her name. She is disgusting. Take your trash and get out of my home." He actually tried to argue. He tried to explain. He said, "It just happened, and we never meant for you to find out like this." And my absolute favorite, "You have to admit, we've been growing apart for a while." He tried to make it my fault. Even then, standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of our life, he tried to pin it on me. I just pointed to the bags. "Get out." And he left. He did a little walk of shame, carrying his entire life in a bunch of garbage bags. I locked the door behind him, I put on the chain, and then, only then, did I slide down the door to the floor and just come apart. The next few hours, days, weeks, they were a black hole of pain. I called in sick to work. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just laid on the couch and stared at the ceiling, feeling this massive, gaping wound where my life used to be. Liam was a heartbreak, but Jenna, that was a soul break. He broke a relationship. She broke me. She broke my past, my trust in the world, my trust in myself. She tried to contact me, of course. Endless calls from a blocked number, long manipulative text messages. I read them in a state of numb horror. "Clara, please just talk to me. I know you're in pain. I never ever wanted this to happen. I love you. You're my sister." My sister. The word made me want to vomit. Then came another one a few days later. "I know I messed up, but what Liam and I have is real. It took us both by surprise. Can't you just be happy for me, even a little bit? Please don't throw away 12 years over a guy. Over a guy. She was trying to frame it like I was being petty, like our friendship was one thing and this was another. She had no concept of the magnitude of her betrayal. I blocked her on everything. I just wanted them to cease to exist. My real friends were incredible. They showed up with soup I wouldn't eat and movies I wouldn't watch. But they couldn't get it. Not really. The Jenna part. To them, she was a terrible friend who did a terrible thing. They didn't understand that she was half of my scaffolding. And now I was just a building in collapse. I thought the grief would kill me.
I honestly did. But then, about a month in, something changed. I was numbly scrolling through my phone, deleting every picture of him, of us, and on a whim, a moment of pure self-destruction, I unblacked Jenna on Instagram. I just had to see. And there it was, her new life. It was a gallery of our destruction. Pictures of her and Liam on a beach vacation, kissing, laughing. And she had rebranded herself. She'd launched a wellness brand. It was called Elysian Glow.
Elysian Glow. Selling light and wellness after burning my life to the ground. The sheer, unmitigated gall. Her whole feed was inspirational quotes, yoga poses on the beach, and pictures of her looking serene. And she was selling products. Little glass bottles of glow serum, packets of soul cleanse tea, a manifestation journal. And people were buying it. The comments were sickening. You're an inspiration. Your glow is contagious. Just ordered my kit. Can't wait to feel this good. And that was it. That was the moment. The grief, the sadness, the victimhood, it all just burned away. And that white-hot rage came back. But this time it wasn't chaotic. It was focused. It was cold and clear and sharp. My architect brain, the part of me that sees systems and structures, that had been offline for a month, it came back online. I looked at her perfect, curated fake life, her stolen boyfriend, her new business, which was so obviously being funded by Liam's finance bro money. And I just thought, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to shatter my world and then use the shards to build yourself a throne. It doesn't work like that. That was the end of Clara the victim, and it was the beginning of my project. This was never about getting him back. I wouldn't have touched him with a 10-foot pole. It wasn't even about exposing the affair. That was messy, personal. This was about something cleaner, purer. It was about justice, the cold, hard, impersonal kind. If I'm being honest, I was also driven by a desperate need to prove to myself that I wasn't the fool they had made me. I had to prove that I wasn't weak. They hadn't broken me. They had just given me a purpose. So I became a ghost. I made a new email, new anonymous social media accounts, and I started to watch her, not as a heartbroken ex-friend, as an investigator. My target? Elysian Glow. I started with the website. It was slick. I'll give her that. All minimalist and airy, full of promises. All natural ingredients, ethically sourced from the purest corners of the globe. It promised health, happiness, and, of course, a glow. The prices were obscene. $80 for a tiny vial of serum. $60 for a 2-week supply of tea. I work with concrete facts and figures. This world of vague promises and insane markups, my bullshit detector was screaming. First, I looked up the business registration. It was an LLC, registered in Delaware, a classic move to hide the real owners. That was flag number 1. Next, the products. Ethically sourced, I screenshotted the ingredients list for her serum. It was just a bunch of cheap carrier oils you can buy in bulk from industrial suppliers, plus some fancy-sounding botanical names. A few hours of research confirmed it. The bulk ingredients were all from huge chemical warehouses in China, not exactly a little farm in Provence. I reversed image searched the photos on her site. The fields of lavender, the close-ups of rare flowers, all stock photos. Flag number 2. Then the glowing testimonials. Jessica M. says Elysian Glow changed her life. I took Jessica M.'s profile picture and ran it through a reverse image search. Her real name was Smiling Businesswoman Holding Tablet. They were all fake. The entire brand was built on a foundation of lies. This was good, but it wasn't jail-worthy. It was just sleazy. I needed more. I dug deeper. I found them on obscure forums, on Reddit threads, the real customers, the ones who weren't smiling businesswoman. One post. Has anyone actually received their Elysian Glow order? They charged my card a month ago and now their customer service email bounces back. Another. Warning, this company is a scam. They signed me up for a monthly subscription I never agreed to and have taken over $300 from my account. I can't get them to stop. And the worst one, from a woman who posted a picture of her red, inflamed skin, the glow serum gave me a horrific chemical burn. I think it's just cheap perfume oil. They refused a refund. There it was. It wasn't just sleazy marketing. It was wire fraud. Using the internet and interstate commerce to knowingly defraud people of their money. That's a federal offense. I felt this cold, calm thrill. It was the same feeling I get when a complex architectural design finally slots perfectly into place. I had them, but I had to be so careful. I couldn't be the one to report it. It would look like a bitter ex, a woman scorned. No one would take it seriously. I had to build a case so perfect, so airtight, that my involvement would be completely unnecessary. I had to build it and then just walk away. For the next 6 months, I lived a double life. By day, I was Clara, the quiet, healing architect, slowly putting her life back together. My friends would tell me, "You're doing so much better. You're so strong." They had no idea my nights were fueled by coffee and rage, that my strength was a quiet, meticulous obsession. I became a forensic investigator. I created a master spreadsheet. I used my anonymous identity to contact every single person I could find who had been scammed. "Hi," I'd write. "I was also a victim of the Elysian Glow scam. I'm trying to gather evidence for a formal complaint. Would you be willing to share your experience?" So many of them responded. They were angry and felt powerless. They sent me everything. Receipts, bank statements, photos of the rashes, screenshots of their unanswered emails. I spoke to a single mother who had spent over $200 she couldn't afford on products that never came. I spoke to a college student who was still fighting the fraudulent subscription charges. Their stories fueled me. This wasn't about my broken heart anymore. This was about them. I compiled it all into a single, massive digital file, my dossier. It was my magnum opus. Over 100 pages, perfectly organized. Section 1, the fraudulent marketing. Section 2, victim testimonies, each with their own evidence folder. Section 3, the corporate deception. But I needed to link it all, irrefutably, to Jenna and Liam. Jenna was sloppy. In an old Instagram live, she accidentally flipped her camera for a split second. In the background was a whiteboard. I took a screenshot and spent hours enhancing it. I could just make out customer names, shipping numbers, and, at the top, in her loopy handwriting, Q2 profit goal, 100K. Liam was harder. He was the silent partner, the money man. But everyone has an ego. He had a profile on a niche business networking site where he'd boasted about being a consultant for a rapidly growing e-commerce wellness brand. He didn't name it, but it was enough. The final, beautiful, devastating piece fell right into my lap. At my actual job, my firm was doing due diligence for a new condo project, and I had access to recent property sales records. And I saw it. A new penthouse apartment downtown, purchased for millions in cash. The buyer was listed as a private trust. The name of the trust was the J&L Future Fund. J for Jenna, L for Liam. They were laundering the money. stealing from people who couldn't afford a $60 tea and using it to buy a multi-million-dollar palace in the sky. I had it. I had the whole rotten structure, from its fraudulent foundation to its money-laundering roof. I printed 3 copies. I bought a burner phone and a box of latex gloves at a pharmacy 3 towns over. I put each copy of the dossier into a plain manila envelope. One went to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. One went to the state attorney general. And the third went to a local investigative journalist, a woman known for her bulldog-like tenacity in exposing scams. I drove to a post office I'd never been to before. I wore the gloves. I paid in cash. I mailed the packages. Dropping them into the blue mailbox felt definitive, like laying the final brick on a project. And then I went home. I deleted the ghost accounts. I factory reset the burner phone and threw it in a random dumpster. I scrubbed every last file from my computer. My part was over. I had built the case, and now I was walking off the construction site. The waiting was the worst. For weeks, nothing. I just went back to my life. But I was living with this thrum of anxiety under my skin. I checked the news every morning, my heart pounding. Did they get it? Did they believe it? What if I'd messed up? And then I saw it. On Jenna's Instagram. They were engaged. She posted a picture of a diamond ring the size of a knuckle. They were on the balcony of their new penthouse, the one bought with stolen money. The caption was, "To our forever, #J&L Future Fund." The sheer arrogance. It almost broke me. I almost posted everything myself right then and there, but I held on. I trusted my work. I trusted my blueprint. Then, one morning, about 2 months later, I got up, made my coffee, opened my laptop, and there it was. The headline on the local news site. Local influencer and fiancé arrested in multi-state fraud ring. And there they were, their mugshots. Jenna's face was blotchy and swollen from crying. Her perfect hair was a wreck. The Elysian glow was gone. She just looked cheap, scared. And Liam, he looked outraged, like this was all a terrible inconvenience. I just stared. I read the article. It was all there, my dossier. The journalist had broken the story. The FBI and the AG had opened a joint investigation. They'd raided the penthouse, frozen their assets. They were facing multiple federal charges: wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, up to 20 years in prison. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just sat there in my quiet apartment, and I felt this stillness. The fire that had been burning in my gut for a year was just gone. And in its place was quiet, emptiness. I did it. I had served justice and my hands were clean. They were in jail because of what they did. Their greed, their choices. I hadn't touched them. The story was everywhere. My friends would call me, "Clara, can you believe it? About Jenna. I always knew there was something off about her." And I just say, "Yeah, it's wild." No one ever knew. To them, I was just the poor, heartbroken ex-friend who got lucky and dodged a bullet. They had no idea I was the one who fired the gun. They both took plea deals. They knew the evidence was too overwhelming to risk a trial. Liam, as the financial mastermind, got 7 years in federal prison. Jenna got 4. She cried in court, of course, gave a big, tearful performance about how she lost her way, that she was manipulated by Liam. She was a performer to the very end. So now, here I am. It's been 2 years since they were sentenced. Liam has 5 more to go. And Jenna, as I said, she gets out on parole next year. And that's why I'm telling you this. To take the story back. This whole experience, it hollowed me out, but it also reforged me. I'm not that soft, trusting girl anymore. Part of her died in that car, parked across the street from her apartment. But the part that was born is stronger. She knows that sometimes you have to be the architect of your own justice. So I'm telling you this, I don't even know why, really. I guess I want anyone out there who feels broken by betrayal to know that you will survive. You will.
You will. You don't have to do what I did. Your revenge can just be healing and living well. That's probably the better way, the healthier way. But the only thing I haven't quite figured out is that sometimes on quiet nights, I still miss her. Not the woman in the mugshot, not the wellness scammer, But the girl with the pink hair, the girl who bought me tacos when I was too shy to speak, I miss my friend, the one I thought I had. And I think a part of me will always be grieving for her. Okay, I think I'm done. Thank you for listening, for just being there. It means more than you know. Drop a comment if you've ever been through something similar or if you just want to say hi. I'll be reading. And if you want more real stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. There's more to come. Thank you for being here.